till they think that they need to have it. That is also,
so that's not necessary.
No, that's what they don't know.
Correct.
It's again one of those, the startup myths that everybody talks about. The things that you need to have a very polished business plan to go to. Is something that people pay money for getting those business plans made.
Yes.
So PK, let's play a...
They actually gave equity, not necessary at all.
PK, let's play a little game. If it's okay, just for us to understand what a good pitch in a forum like this could be, assume that you meet Anand and Alok and you're an entrepreneur pitching for a business, then you meet them over coffee here. How would you pitch that business to them in the maybe 35-40 seconds that you have? And Alok and Anand...
No, what I would want the person to have done, or I would do,
can you
in
do
this
a
case,
pitch?
if I'm doing the enacting of this,
can you pitch
I would actually think about what is it that I'm trying to solve, like the problem or the idea that I'm talking about. I would have spent time on actually the idea and the possible consequences of plan A, plan B, this happened, because those are the questions I'll get asked. Okay, and focus on that.
Can we do a demo?
I'll have to think of an idea, or use somebody else's idea.
Or use one of the portfolio companies that we could...
No, let me use a live idea.
E-commerce site for Squeezy
You know what, Karthik, you need to believe in the bloody idea to sell, okay? so yeah, don't make me sell things which I don't. Oh, I win. I got enough Squeezy balls to run aside. My stock. Inventory done. I win. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I didn't even need to pitch. Crowdfunding happened. I didn't need to pitch.
PK, maybe what we'll do is we'll give you a couple of minutes to think about it. And meanwhile, I'll come to Mohit. Now let's go back to the other side. You've received your funding and the business plan is not going according to what you had expected it to. What kind of conversations were you having with your investors at that point of time? And I'm going to ask that to the investors later on as well. But what's your experience on that?
So I think I raised money and I missed my quarter plans for 8 quarters in one row. So I think good thing is that you want to work with VCs or you want to work with partners who really believe in the domain, who really believe that's a big problem to be solved, and sooner or later you'll get it right. I don't think it's about whether I had a business plan, right? But business plan is, I think it's just what is good about the planning part of it, that you think through it, but it's really going to come true the way it is being laid out. You will take more time, you will take more money, or all those things. I think it goes wrong all the time. What is really useful is the planning part of it, that you have really spent time thinking through it, and that you looked at different tasks. So in my opinion, in my case, when we really missed the business plan by almost 7-8 quarters, what was really good was that people stayed very optimistic about it. We could really demonstrate that if the classified is not working, we have a lot of money in the new car segment, and this is what we can go about and try and do it. We did a lot of small experiments, which were really low cost and low distractions and low time, and a lot of experiments like that, which really made us see, where we should put the next chunk of money after we raised it.
In the early stages, how involved were your investors in the?
So,
in terms of,
for example, when I raised
in a quarter, once in a month.
When I raised money from Seed Fund, Mahesh was my contact point. I was not supposed to meet him. I was supposed to meet him maybe every month, but I used to go and meet him every week. And he never asked for a meeting. I was following up saying, I want to come and meet you every Friday. And I go to him and tell him everything what I was thinking about the business. Everything, including the team, the people I'm hiring, what I'm building, everything. And just get his perspective on it. It's like a free advice. And one other thing, one of the discussion we are having is when you go and raise money with the VCs. Whether you raise money with the VCs or you don't raise, you go and meet them. They are really intelligent people. They give you a lot of free advice. They see the world, right? They see a lot of things. They go around the places. And they can really help you see different aspects of your business. So I go to Mahesh every week, and almost for 6 months, I've met him almost like 24 times. And after that, I started meeting every month. And after 1 year, I started meeting every quarter. After 1 year, 2 years, maybe he was chasing me, come and show me your face, right? But I think early stage, you really want to go and get somebody to look at what you're doing, because you had no clue. I never worked for a big company. I never had a work experience. All you had to do was fresh. So you want somebody to look at it and validate and say, and give you a different angle to it. You may agree with him, not agree with him, but at least you got a viewpoint.
Right. So during the tough times, what kind of, was there stress in the relationship? Was there even, more support?
No, I think
Were you? Was there? Were you sort of packaging your stuff, or what? How was that?
no. So I think one thing I learned was that when you go to the board and when you go to the VCs, you should say all the things. Like you talk about the good things, talk about the bad things, talk about the ugly things. So they really see the transparency, and because ultimately you also own the stake in that company, right? Even if you don't have to, even if they have to change you, let it be because it's good for the company. So I think I was very transparent with my board, very, very transparent. Anand can possibly vouch for it. And I think that really helped because they could also make me see the shortcoming which I had. They could make me see, what I'm doing wrong with my team. And I think together we could actually come.
I'd like to compliment Mohit on the fact that, while yes, he's right, I never saw a single quarter where they met the targets. But there was also, again, never a single quarter where we were uncomfortable as investors.
So,
there was always explanation, and of course there was always progress, even if you're not hitting targets, right? So there was always a level of comfort that there's enough being done, and that's all we can monitor, right? Like, are we doing the right things or not? That is more important than are we achieving the right results or not. That is a function of time.
So Anand, given that you invest in early stages and continue to do so, and you've been doing that earlier, you would have seen a lot more failures than successes. How are entrepreneurs expected to have that conversation? What is the conversation that they should be having? At what stage would the decision about where this company is going, or should this company go forward or not forward? Whose decision is it? Your decision, their decision, joint decision?
So that is one reason, VCs should not get very highly involved. It is important to maintain a dispassionate look at the company, an outside look. Now, mostly my recommendation to entrepreneurs is that when you are down to your last 3 or 4 months of money, right, that is the time you try to sell the company to somebody and make an honorable exit, right? I mean, it could be a notional exit, it could be recovery of some money, but on your resume you want to put this thing to a closure. It's like shutting a company down one day abruptly is like leaving a job, vanishing, right? So you don't want to do a vanishing act. You want to think about it. Okay, now I've only got 3 months of money. Maybe I'll survive. Maybe I'll try hard. But in parallel, I'm also going to say, how do I put a proper closure to this, right? Instead of going into the last month and then becoming bankrupt and a lot of people chasing you and chasing your VCs, that makes it very difficult for you to come back, and start something again.
So Anand, how many teams that of which you have funded earlier who have failed, have you put money in them again, either at the same team or individuals within that same team? Have there been experiences?
Yeah, I'd say at least in 2 cases, we've had at least 1 or 2 of the co-founders teaming up again and starting up. And if you look around yourself, there are plenty of cases where people, in fact, the most common thing to do is that if your startup was a moderate success, you most likely go and become a VC. And if you don't do that, you go and start again.
That's a good one.
To add to a point of this, in fact, I find the residual teams of things that fail to be the biggest asset that I have.
Fantastic.
In fact, to use those teams.
Do you want to give a couple of examples, PK?
So without naming people, there've been places where people tried something as an idea, did that, made some money, went around, hung out for 6 months, 1 year, and then they realized it doesn't work, went their own ways, probably took jobs. But good thing is that this is how probably early stage investors build their databases of good people. And then you'll always come across a great idea or a great team which is trying to add and has holes in it. Those are the times when you actually suggest. It's almost like matchmaking, where you can actually do that. And I find that to be the biggest asset base to look at, because you've worked with the person before. You have a very good idea what that person can or can't deliver. It's like getting free recruitment of the best people.
So, given that there are a number of startups that you folks at this early stage that you invest in are likely to succeed, what suggestions or advice would you give to startups about having that kind of conversation? What have you seen being done wrong about that? Apart from, of course, vanishing in a day, but transparency, etc., are all good points. But are any indicators in terms of what kind of conversations the startup founders should have among themselves before they come to you? What kind of decisions would you want? Or would you want them to take these kind of conversations before you have put in that money as well? Sorry?
They should have discussed what they want to discuss before they come to me. Like they should be friends. They should have cleaned out their issues or whatever. That's what I do.
Alok, how should a startup leverage their investors? What are the kind of things that you've seen smarter entrepreneurs do with investors that some of the other smarter ones have not been able to?
I see a sense of focus among entrepreneurs who, leverage not just their investors but other advisors as well. Right? None of us are good at everything. Right. There might be very few things that we are good at, and I think some of our, better performing, smarter entrepreneurs will reach out to us for very specific things. Right? They will not expect us to solve their sales problem and their product problem and their marketing problem and their financing problem. They would have figured out that on the board, who's the person who can help them with recruiting a CFO, right? Who's the person who's going to probably be able to help them with business development connections, right? And they leverage, hence they'll end up using both their time and the advisor / investor's time far more effectively. Than to either try and reach out for everything or to try and then, keep it a very formal engagement where they just will present once a month and not be able to leverage any value out of it.
Anand, any difference in the early stages? Because that time, startups at the stage that you invest in are likely to require a lot more hand-holding, right?
Yeah, but even there it is important for efficient use. Most people will have at least 1 or 2 advisors, right. 1 or 2 investor team members, right? And it is ideal if after a few months you figure out who's good at what, and then you have specific conversation. I mean, I'll talk about Carvale, right? Early days, Mohit and I would discuss something which was nothing with what Mohit would discuss with Mahesh or with Praveen Bhai. We had different topics to talk about.
So I figured out that for finance I had to go to him, for marketing I should go to Mahesh, for my senior management hiring I should go to Praveen Bhai. So I think it was very clear. I never mix it up at all. Neither I worried about, why should I go to one partner for one specific thing. I think that's how it has to be. You actually know who's good at what.
But at any stage, to add to what you were saying, at any stage, you need the entrepreneurs or the startups to know what they need from us. They need to ask for it. Right. Whatever stage, irrespective. There may be the idea angel stage. They shouldn't and we shouldn't get too involved in the sense so that we start running it. Right. It should be the other way around. They should ask for specific issues to be solved and us to help them.
Yeah, in fact, Alok is right. Most good entrepreneurs will frame saying, can you do this for me? Rather than, oh, I'm stuck here. What should I do? They don't ask. Good entrepreneurs will never ask, what should I do? They'll say, I need to do this. Can you help me here?
The founder is the captain of the ship. Everybody else is an advisor, including your board and VC, everything. So no matter what they advise you, you're the guy to call the shots and own it. Irrespective of what they advise you, if you go and do it, it's your responsibility. So in my opinion, no matter what they're saying, you want to decide yourself and figure out what you want to do and what you want them to help you with.
Good point, Mohit. So listen, let's switch tracks to the last theme of the discussion, which is about exits. What do you expect an entrepreneur to tell you at a initial presentation about exit potential or exits and exit options? Because a lot of folks talk about that, but
yeah, I mean, I think it is important that the space is such that there are exits possible, right? But more importantly, VCs want to know, is there scale in the business or not, right? So we have to believe that at the right scale, exit will be possible.
So just with how many people understand here the concept of an exit? Or would you want Anand to explain that a little more? How many people would want Anand to explain that?
So exit is basically, typically VCs invest for a time frame of 5 to 7 years, right? And they'd want to recover, whatever X multiple on the investment after a while. Exit is possible largely by M&A, or if everybody is lucky with an IPO, or maybe by a second investment in the company. Of course, M&A and IPO are the only preferred exit routes, and whether an M&A is possible or not will be driven by what is the activity in that sector. Right? If you're in a tech sector where Cisco and IBM are acquiring a lot of companies, it's simple. You just simply need to give examples, or you need to show that this is the only unique company in India. There's nobody from outside, so there will be inbound acquisition, somebody coming from outside India and buying us to get an Indian presence. So you need to build out a little bit of those scenarios. But again, more importantly, if you think that there's enough scale, it is not important for you to demonstrate that exit is there after 5 years. And while VCs like to see that you're open to an exit, no VC wants to hear that you want to exit in 3 years, right? That's the wrong thing. I mean, it's your assumption that they want to make. I would like an entrepreneur who will say, boss, I really don't want to exit. If there is a lot of money, it makes sense for the company, I might exit. But otherwise, I'd like to do the same business for next 25 years or the whole of my life, right? That's my ideal answer.
What do you expect an entrepreneur to tell you at that point of time? Most people don't really understand the concept of exits. And, at the early stages, and typically at the Hatch Accelerator, for example, we get a number of business plans where people say, look, I really don't want to exit. But it does not mean that they understand the concept that the investors would need an exit, and maybe that's a point that you might want to clarify a little more. I know, but... yeah. So that's the point that I would like a little bit of clarification.
The differentiation in this case is the concept of the exit. I think we should differentiate that.
That's
as an investor, the exit is there. And what you said, the ideal answer would be I'll be there for a lifetime. Is the idea, because there is no exit for the entrepreneur. In most cases, still the company becomes big enough where he becomes dispensable.
Look at Carvale, all the investors have exited. The angel investors and seed fund have made plenty of money. But he still continues to run the company. And I mean, although he can get out of the company, he has no intention to. He wants to take it to newer heights now. So that's the key. That's the key to the passion, right? I mean, why did Excel invest in Mohit? Because they knew that he's going to be around for a very, very long time. And that's the key for actually. Only if the entrepreneur wants to spend his whole lifetime, will an investor get an exit? That's the equation.
They're actually opposite of each other. So if you come and start talking about your exit, I'm not interested in you, because in that case, there'd probably be no exit for me.
Yeah. But what that means is that investors invest in your company with the hope that they will be able to sell that investment to somebody else at a later stage, and that's what exit is. So Alok, when you see folks presenting at the Indian Angel Network, I guess one of the questions the group would also want to understand is what's the exit options for what do you expect? I mean, while you would know what the options are, what do you want the entrepreneur to talk at that point of time?
So I think most of us in the angel investing community understand that entrepreneurs today in India are not necessarily sophisticated in talking about exits, and that is fine, right? So, many times in companies that I have personally invested in as an angel or Canaan, we might not have received good answers to what's your exit, but a good answer to why is this valuable, right? How will you be distinctive? So I think that the entrepreneur has to be able to articulate. I think really on that question, what you're trying to communicate is a sensitivity to the need of investors to exit, right? So you recognize that need and you say, yes, I understand this, right? And here are two thoughts on how I think it can happen, but obviously you guys deal with this much more than I do, right? And I'm happy to work with you on figuring out how this exits. I'm okay with that answer. I understand most of us haven't gone through that loop, and that's okay.
Yeah. And same thing as can the guy make a great presentation, right? First-time entrepreneurs don't really know this space very well.
Right, understand. I just wanted to. So, PK, do you need more time for your pitch, or are you ready to do the pitch?
I decided not to pitch this business plan. I can't. I exited.
Okay, anyway, but it'll be interesting at some stage to understand from the investor itself what makes a good pitch, and that will be a.
I can give you a few points. Be real.
Yes.
Okay.
So what does that mean? I mean, what does be real mean?
Be real means say the right things in the sense what you think is right. Don't try to make it up.
So PK, here's the point. Entrepreneurs who come to these kind of conferences, spend 3,000-4,000 rupees or whatever it is to get that, they are real. They have aspirations. They have their dreams, right? and what they're looking for, and what they're saying, what they're saying is what they feel is right. What we are seeking right now in this forum is, what do you guys think is a good thing? What was a good pitch? What was the kind of things that people would want to? Maybe Alok or Anand would want to.
Just a few points that I can add, which you know. And again, don't get too complex. Don't prepare too much in the sense. Don't pay people.
I understand. These are all things.
Let me finish.
Yeah, PK, this we know. What does that mean? How does that translate? 45 seconds में क्या बोले?
Barkha Dutt, sorry. Oh, no problem.
बोलो.
All I was saying was, guys, don't get too wound up. In the sense, don't prepare too much. My question would be, don't prepare too much. But what you should really do as hard work is homework, is to have researched and worked on that topic, thought about the topic well enough. What pisses people off more is the use of time when people have not even thought it through. Don't try to sell fads to people, because they also read the same tech crunches and other things that you do.
Sure.
Okay, so don't think, oh, somebody is doing something there, I can do it here. Doing a geographical difference of a model or repeat of a model is a perfectly good idea. That's not what I'm trying to say. But then you should know how changes happen. But more importantly, when I said people should be real, they should be themselves. Don't try to become another. Don't try to be Steve Jobs and come and do an impersonation.
No, I agree with you. But, you know, for example, what should a 45-second, 1 minute, or whatever the time that you folks will give them over, you know, before you switch into a next panel discussion, what is the structure of that conversation? What
there is no 45-second pitch, by the way. We all said that we'll probably date for a time.
No, I understand that. All I'm asking is, so people who are coming in for a TiE conference, when they meet you at this kind of conference, what should they say to you to request, to excite you enough to get that next meeting? That's all I'm asking. Look, in your view, what
the way
should
I handle that is I actually tell them my website, which has a place where they can actually start a conversation. And if that conversation goes forward, it normally ends up into meetings, which will take it to the next. Because there is usually no 45-second pitch which can be.
No, I think there is elevator pitch, and what you want to do in that 30-second, 45-second is to get the next meeting. So right. I think what I'll do is, if I get a chance to pitch, there are things you can talk about. You can talk about if you've done something really successfully in the past. You mentioned that briefly. If you're a prototype which is already done, I would possibly go and say, I made a small website. It already serves 50,000 customers every month, and we've been able to monetize 10% of them. Can I come back and give you a demo of that, for example, right? Or if you had a great investor, like Anand invested into my company, for example, I can go to Alok and say, I did this prototype, and Anand has been an investor and advisor to me for the last 6 months. We made some good progress. I think you want to talk about something which gives you a validation of that you are worthy of the next meeting. That's all you want, right?
I agree with Mohit. Largely,
introduce yourself.
Introduce yourself in a nice way that people remember you. It's not entirely about your idea, right? I mean, if I find an interesting person with an interesting background, I'd like to meet him again. That is more important, because 1 minute for a pitch, there's so many ideas, right? I don't know where you got the idea from, but if I know who you are, I might be interested in meeting you again.
Yeah. So, Alok, do you have a different point of view?
Not different, but let me propose a template. What problem are you solving for whom? Why is it valuable to solve that problem? And what is your credibility regarding solving that problem? So, coming back to the squeezy balls, I want to make softer versions of these squeezy balls because they hurt too much. And there's a huge market because entrepreneurs like Mohit are multiplying in numbers, and all of them are going to receive these balls. So, they are the people who will sell it for me.
Fantastic. Round of applause.
Vishal Gondal will ask for bigger ones.
Thank you for that. Folks, we have time for about 5 or 6 questions. One request, keep the questions generic. Don't shoot these questions regarding your venture. Those conversations we can have. We can have later. So if you don't mind, we'll just take it from there. Can you just pass on the mics on that side?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Just when you ask a question, announce your name, and if you have the question that's directed to a particular participant, actually suggest whom you would like to answer.
All right. So I'm Neeraj, and I'm a banker. Actually, my question.
Hold it a little.
Yeah. Is it clear? Yeah, much better. I'm Neeraj, and I'm a banker. My question is more to Alok, and. So the question is, when you invest like 10 lakh or like $20,000-$30,000, like what type of documentation do you look at, like from the point of view of like the first investment into a new venture?
Alok, that was for you.
Yeah, you should take PDCs.
So we do. I have done a shareholders agreement in each of my angel investments. It can be short and sweet, but I've required a shareholders document to be done.
So, Sharda, is that Sharda?
So it's largely a shareholders and which captures the rights of the shareholders that they have, and you find the instrument to be a preference shares, largely excepting in very early stage where it's equity shares. very few convertible debentures are coming into picture.
So Sharda Balaji, by the way, is the founder of Novojuris, who a legal firm that works only with startups, so she should know best. Yeah. Yes.
You know, if you just Google it, there is one page angel agreement template, something like that, and download that. If you go to Angel Investor, actually that's very nice because that's one page. You understand it, everybody understands it very well. It gives them rights to invest and get.
I think there's also open source.
Yeah, it's open source. It's available. Everybody can use that. So.
But typically, most angel groups or angel investors would have some template that they would refer to. And yeah, I mean those templates are.
There is some.
There are templates available.
Hello, I'm Mukul Joshi. My question is, most of the investment that is, this question is in general for, okay, I would like to select PK. Okay. So, my question is, the most of the investment that we see happening in India are primarily for business ideas. Let's say if somebody wants to build a Hadoop or, a Neo4j or a graph database or a Berkeley DB, we don't see a lot of potential or a possibility of that kind of idea really getting the funding. What is the reason?
The only reason I can say, I wouldn't say there are not enough Hadoops around or possible Hadoops around, but I would say that probably the maturity of the ecosystem is when people start looking at ideas which are outside the box. So the more wilder the idea or more bigger the idea, probably people start doing that kind of step out or go to the outlier idea only once, the other part of the ecosystem is very, very mature. I don't think we have even reached a place where, we have looked at the business ideas for that matter, or people, the low-hanging fruit for that matter, which we have looked at. So I think that will happen, and I'm seeing more of that. There's a few things that I've seen where people have actually spent time while building a company which is doing, outsource works and offshoring work and stuff, while building something on the side, which is the techie's dream, something like a Hadoop or something like that. I see people doing that. Now, how many of them will become successful or become products that we talk about? I don't know yet. I think it's too mature.
There was a question there.
Hello, sir. My question to Mohit, sir. Sir, it has been said that to launch a venture, you're supposed to have a previous work ex. So, that's mandatory have a work ex or a knowledge of that field, or you can start up just as a fresher.
What time was it? Till 2:30 or 3 o'clock? I said 90 minutes. Oh, is it? Okay. So do we have time for one more question? Yeah. So we'll finish this question, and there was one question this side.
I think your question is whether you should have a work experience in the domain before you started. I think it's always helpful when you have it. But in my opinion, you go into a company when you can't really stop yourself from doing it, right? Even if you're in a college and you get something which is
Vishal, that was the warmest welcome anybody has got on this platform.
I was trying to click on that.
Yeah, sorry. Was a
calls, I want them.
No, but we already said you told me what bigger.
This is an MBA.
So, Mohit, did you get the question? I'm sorry, I got distracted. Sorry. Oh, you answered it. That's done. So, if you could just pass on the mic to sir, if you don't mind, we can take that question a little later. We'll take it in one-on-one. But listen, there was one more question that can be the last question. Somebody had raised their hand. Okay, you have the mic with you. Okay, go ahead, Vijay.
Yeah. Hello. Okay, so my question is to the entire panel here.
Very good.
Hey, Kunal, welcome. Hi, Vijay, go ahead, ask your question. Who was it directed at?
It's anybody in the panel can answer.
No, just select one person, Reddy, because I'll have to do the hard work otherwise.
Okay, then Alok.
Alok, this question's for you.
So Alok, when we attend events like this, a lot of times the end message that any power talk has is to focus on consumer delight and try create value for the consumer. But when you go to the VC, they tell you that, okay, if you're not gonna get paid by the consumer, and in fact get paid by the bank. I am into home loans, okay? So favor the bank, you know.
Vijay, keep the questions,
Okay, so
generic,
like,
not much specific to your business.
So
please.
it's like, you know, the message is that you favor the consumer, but when you go to a VC, they say, who's going to pay you the money? Okay? So who's going to pay for your product? You favor that. So what do we do? Like, you know, do we favor the consumer and be hell-bent at that, or do we like switch sides?
Yeah, I think, you know, I only see a semantic issue here. I don't think this is a real issue in the sense, if it is a consumer business, you'll focus on the consumer, right? If your customer is an enterprise customer, then you'll favor the customer. There are scenarios where the two are different, right? And then that's, in my mind, it's a question of strategy, right? They're perfectly valid businesses which have been built on consumer delight, right? While their customer is someone else. Think of the Google search engine. Right? But the basis of success is to offer consumers the best possible search engine so that a lot of consumers come and hence a lot of advertisers come, right? So that becomes a matter of, you know, what's your approach to the problem. But I don't think there is a, you know, single answer.
So if somebody comes to you with a consumer delight proposition, you are ready to back that, right?
We are open to listening to that pitch.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, folks, thank you very much for, you know, for this session. PK, Mohit, you're going to stay back with us. Anand, thank you for coming in.